Hello Year 7 and welcome to your next geography lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to be looking at ways that we measure the weather. We're going to be able to list different ways that we measure the weather, and we're going to describe how these different instruments work and the measurements that they measure them by. Okay, so the purpose of this video is to go through the tasks step by step. So you might not watch all of the video at once. You might watch task 1, then pause the video and then complete task 1 on the PDF or the Word document. And then you may come back to the video, watch task 2, and then pause the video and then complete task 2 on your PDF or Word document. You may choose to watch the whole video now and then come back to the video as and when you need it. So there's multiple ways for the benefit of the video, but it allows me to give you a little bit more geographical input to help you work through the tasks more confidently. Okay, so once you have completed your recap quiz that you do at the start of every lesson, you should be in this lesson checking your green pen notes, so making sure that you've got all of the answers right. Then we'll be starting the lesson, so make sure you've got the title, Measuring the Weather, and we're going to start task 1. So task 1, you have this image on your Word documents, and you can tell a lot just by looking outside. So I would like you to annotate around this photograph to describe the weather. So by looking at this, we can see, is it sunny? Well, there isn't a big bright sunshine in the image, but it feels like it's quite sunny because the ground looks very bright. It looks very bright, which tells us that it's in the day as opposed to the night time. Is it there good visibility? So visibility is how well can you see. So I would say that the visibility is quite good. Is it cloudy? Well, yeah, we have these really thick, dark rain clouds here, which suggests that even though it's not about to rain, it might be about to rain. Does it look warm? Well, it looks quite bright, but the clouds suggest that it might be quite cold. But you can't tell that. You can just assume these things. So annotate your photograph describing the weather. So what do you think the weather is like at this moment in time? Using all of these little statements in the video to help you. So you might want to pause the video here while you complete task 1, or you might want to carry on watching the video the whole way through. Now, when we looked at that picture, it was very difficult to be aware about how warm it was. It was very difficult to see how windy it was, or how clear it was to see. It was very difficult to see how much rainfall had fell. So in order to fully be able to describe photographs or the weather, we need to be able to ask the following questions. What's the temperature here today? How cloudy is it? How much rain fell today? How fast is the wind blowing? Where is the wind blowing from? So when we think about how fast the wind is blowing, we're thinking about it in miles per hour. When we're talking about where it's blowing from, we're talking about north, east, south or west. When we're talking about the temperature, we're talking about it in degrees C. When we're talking about how cloudy it is, we're saying how many clouds are there in the sky. And when we're talking about how much rainfall fell, we're measuring the amount of rainfall that's being caught in millimeters. And we also want to see how visible it is. So with your eyes, how much can you see? Is it a lot? Is it full visibility? Or is it quite poor? So it might be misty, for example. Okay, so in this lesson, we are going to be able to answer all these questions by finding out what instruments we use to do this. So task 2. What we're doing in this lesson, we're looking at who and how we measure the weather. And the study of the weather is called meteorology. People who study the weather are called meteorologists. Now, it's quite a long word, but if you just say it with me, meteorologists, it reads how it sounds, how it reads. The weather is always being observed around the world at weather stations, so that is how we know when we go onto our phone, whether it's a Met Office, or whether we watch the weather on the news or on the TV or through the radio. They're able to tell us about the weather because of weather stations. Now, weather stations, once a meteorologist has then collected the weather, they then write a weather report. And the weather reports forecasts the weather for that week. So it tells us whether we need to get some de-ice for our car, or whether we need to buy an umbrella to take the dogs for a walk. Okay, so that is task 2. So that task 2 is quite straightforward because we've gone through it together in the video. Task 3 then, we are going to be looking at how we measure the weather, and we're going to focus on 5 different examples. So how do we measure the weather? Well, we measure the temperature through a thing called a thermometer, which is this thing here. And you might have used a thermometer if you're poorly, you put it in your mouth and it tells you how hot or cold you are. We measure the wind direction using a weather vane, and you might have seen these in videos or on the TV. Normally you see them at farms, and they spin round and the arrow points the direction in which the wind is coming from. Precipitation, remember, is anything that falls from the sky in rain, snow and hail, and that tells us how much of these things have fallen, and we measure that in a rain gauge. So what would happen is the rain gauge would fill up, and then we take the reading from the side to say how wet it has been. Wind speed then, we measure that by using an anemometer, which we can see here. So they essentially look like little cups, and they spin. The faster they spin, so the more full spins they do, so the more times they fully rotate, shows how fast it's going. So if it's spinning 10 times per minute, it's going much faster than if it was only spinning round 3 times per minute. And then we use something called an eye to look at how cloudy the sky is. Okay, so on your sheet, you will notice that there is a table that looks like this. And I have done the thermometer for you. So you've been given the name of the instrument, so the name of the instrument that measures the weather, and you've been told what that instrument looks like. So if you ever wanted to measure the amount of rain, you would need to use something called a rain gauge. If you ever wanted to measure the temperatures, you would have to use a thermometer. So what you have to do using this video is complete the next tasks. So for example, we know what the name of the instrument is and we know what it looks like, but we now need to know what part of the weather does this instrument measure. So I've done the first one for you. A thermometer measures the temperature, and the temperature tells us how hot or how cold a place is. It's measured in degrees centigrade, so that's degrees C. And then this one you do on your own. So you might think about who uses this instrument. So it might be a business, it might be a person, or what you use it for. So we use a thermometer to measure when we're feeling poorly. Now on the next slide, it tells you more information on the weather vane, the anemometer, and the eye and the rain gauge that you will use to help you fill out your table on either the PDF, on paper, or in the Word document. Okay then, so let's do the anemometer together. So an anemometer is an instrument that is used to measure how fast the wind is flowing. So that helps us to answer the first question. It measures how fast the wind is flowing, and it does that by spinning. Okay. Now the next section is telling us how they measure it. So this weather instrument is measured in miles per hour. And it's important to know about this because if you're going on a boat or on a bike, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that if the weather was very, very powerful, if the wind was flowing very strong. So this final section here tells us who might want to know about how we measure wind speeds and why we measure wind speeds. Let's do the same then for a rain gauge. So a rain gauge measures the amount of precipitation falling from the clouds, the amount of rainfall or snow or hail coming from the clouds. Now what it does, the rainfall will fall into some sort of container, and on the side is a ruler, and this allows us to measure the amount of rainfall in millimeters. Okay, but who would like to know about the rainfall? Well, let's think about this. If you were a dog walker, you would not want to be going out if it was raining. If you owned a cafe and you only had outdoor seating, you might want to have to buy some umbrellas before you open your cafe. Otherwise, the people that go there for food will get extremely wet. The next one then is a weather vane. So a weather vane is an instrument for showing the direction of the wind. So whether it's going from north, east, south, or west. Okay, so it is important to know which direction the wind is traveling from. I'm really sorry, that's meant to be that colour. So this is how they measure it. It's really important to know which way the weather is coming from, because imagine if you were on a plane and the plane was traveling from America to England. Now, if the wind was travelling in the direction towards England, so it was travelling in an easterly direction, then the plane journey will be really, really fast. However, if the wind direction was actually travelling the other way, so you were still travelling from America to England, but the wind was travelling in a westerly direction, you would be travelling against the wind the whole way, so your journey will be much slower. So pilots that fly planes will need to know about this to be able to tell you how long your journey is going to take. So you'll notice on a flight they'll say, the wind speeds are X, Y, Z, and as a result, we're going to get in an hour ahead of schedule. However, sometimes it can go the opposite way and go, we're working against the wind, it's slowing us down a little bit, so we're going to be half an hour late to our designated location. So that might be a person or something that wants to know about the direction of the wind. And then the final example is looking at an eye. So an eye measures cloud cover in the sky, and it does that using an octus. Now an octus is split into 8 different sections, so it kind of looks a little bit like what I've just drawn below. So if none of the octus is shaded in, then it means the sky is completely clear, so there's no clouds. If 4 or 3 of the octus was shaded in, it would mean it was a little bit cloudy. However, if all of the octus was shaded in, it would mean it's completely cloudy, so the visibility is a little bit worse. Now, who would like to know about this? Well, it's really important because if there's clouds, it might suggest it's about to rain, and it also might suggest how warm it is. So you might want to use this for lots of different examples. So I'll let you think about who or what business would like to use an eye to measure the amount of cloud cover in the sky, and why would they want to do that. So this is all the information you need to complete task 3. So you might want to pause it here to fill out your sheets, or you might want to continue watching the video. Task 4 then is the final task, and this is just to show me what you know. So we need to decide which instrument do we use to find out the following information. So if we wanted to know whether it was good enough to fly a kite, well, we need to know about how windy it is. So to do that, we might use an anemometer. So the instrument uses an I've spelled that wrong. Anemometer. Okay, well, we'll just change that in a minute. So the first one is an anemometer. If you need to know whether you need to wear a jumper or not, well, you're thinking about how cold it is, so we need to think about the temperature. So for this one, you might want to be looking at a thermometer. The next one, to know whether the ground is going to be muddy or not, well, that's talking about rainfall. So you decide which measurements looks at rainfall. The fourth one, how hot or cold it is, that's talking about the temperature. So what measures the temperature? That will be the answer to number 5. And question 6, if you need to know whether to wear sunglasses or not, well, this one's a little bit tricky. If there's lots of clouds in the sky, then you're not going to be able to see the sunshine, so therefore it might not be very sunny. So this one is talking about the visibility. So for the visibility one, think about which instrument measures that. So once you have completed tasks 1 to 5, you need to make sure you have all of your notes in front of you and complete the quiz that has been assigned to you on It's Learning. If you have any questions, please send me a message. Have fun and good luck.